Alright, in this video we're going to talk about servo registration, but we're going to talk about it slightly different. So what happens if you actually try to home your servo and there is a registration valid, right? There's a registration event that's triggered that is actually in progress right now. Similar to what's going on right here, right? So what I mean by that is if I go over here to my servo, which is in my trainer scenario, right? This is version 32. This is also running off of a L7 processor, and it is running one servo that is actually a position servo, so a real servo, right? So with that said, if I go to motion group or motion axis or direct commands, and I try to come over here and I home it, right? If I try to home it, it's going to come in and say it cannot be homed. You see this? You are trying to home an axis that is currently in registration. So this is going to hinder you from actually being able to do this task. Now, even though we've added task up here to say, okay, we don't want to actually trigger the event if we are a capture for the event to happen for registration if our action status is not on, or our servo is not on, right? So our servo action status, that's the bit that you would monitor to see if your servo is on, right? So that's what we're doing right here. So now what we would do in this instance, again, now generally speaking, you would have programming that would disarm and then cut it off. But what happens is we did one shots up here that disarmed it, and it was a little bit lagging. So in this case, in our servo example, it's still re-triggered. So what we want to do is, and that was basically, we can program around that, but I want to show you this example because I figure this is a really good chance, a really good indication to show you exactly what to do so that you understand how to do, right? So with that said, if we come over here and we go to motion direct commands, right? And we want to home it, right? Or we just did a home from natural function. We did a home from a HMI button or a home from whatever the case may be, maybe a switch or whatever the case, and you got that error. What would you do? You can easily come over here to motion disarm registration. You can pick your registration bit. In this case, we're registration 2 because we're using registration 2 right here. In our arm, we can hit execute, right? So now it went ahead and took. So now we can come up to our MAH, which is our home, and now we can go ahead and do that, and now it took the home. So now if I look at my registration position when I capture it, actually if I go to my servo and I go to my actual monitor tag and then I go look at the actual position is correct. Now if I go to start the system now, it will track just like it did properly before. So now you can see now it's actually working and it's working good. So we'll actually go to look at the trending, and we'll look at the comparison right here. So we can come in and see that our product length when we're registering is roughly around 1, right? So that's still working correctly. And when we look at our registration, it's showing that, right? It's showing the product length down here, roughly around 1. It's holding really well every time the event is registered. We'll crank the speed up a little bit to see if there's any variation. And you see there's a slight bit of variation, but that's perfectly normal because it's really subtle. So if we look at our event registration, right? So our registration for what we're doing of our motion arm command, right? This is again tracking events, right? So this is a continuation of what we did before. Now and again, this is showing you how to get out of that one error if you got that error and you had a homing instance, right? So we're going to put some programming in to resolve that. But again, when it comes down to it, you want to understand if you did get that error, how to get out of it, right? So I mean it's a good indication. But see, we're still tracking our product length perfectly, right at roughly around 1. And this is this is just a servo wheel, right? This is a servo wheel, and it's got a little photo eye, and it's got a little sliver of reflective tape. So it's actually doing really, really well for the setup that it has. And again, so even if I crank that up, and it's running a pretty good, decent speed right now. But even if I go to a higher speed, it's still. I actually cranked it up a minute ago to so fast that it actually slung the little sliver of reflective tape off of it. But so I don't want to do that. But again, when it comes down to it, you can see this thing is tracking perfectly. And that's again using this motion arm command. Now you can't see these bits coming off and coming on, but they are coming off and coming on because again our registration is so. Again, to explain that even further, our course rate update is 4 milliseconds. So we're requesting our data from our actual servo at 4 milliseconds. Now we have a periodic task where we're doing all of our registration arm and our registration disarm and our actual product tracking, our mathematics or simple mathematics for our product tracking. We're doing that in a periodic task of 8 milliseconds. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're giving ourselves 2 times the course rate update, so 2 times of the scan rate, right? So we're saying, okay, we're allowing the servo to update 2 times before we're actually going to use the data that we pulled from the servo. Now that gives us proper timing, gives us proper functioning, and everything we can do to get the best outcome. And you see, this is a very, very tight tolerance system, working very well for what we have. This is just a sliver of reflective tape on a photo eye off a little wheel that I mounted on top of a servo. Very, very, very simple, but effective. So showing registration, very good for understanding where you're at, what you're doing, and you can see this tolerance. And we'll speed it up a little bit more. I don't want to speed up too much. I gotta sling that tape off once again, but we'll speed it up a little bit more and show you that everything is tracking properly, right? So with that said, we'll easily come in here and we'll actually stop it. And now what we would do to disarm this and to make sure, so now we're completely off. So if we come in here and look at our controls, right? So we're looking at our controls, we're still on IP. So if you think about it, we can say this. We can say, okay, so what we want to do is we want to say this. We want to say if in progress. So we want to grab this tag. I like to just grab the tag like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and put some controls to disarm it. Now, in this instance, I'm going to add this extra bit right here. Then I want to come in here and put this in here, and I want to say, okay, if the IP is on, right? So if the IP is in progress, if it's on, then I want to come in here and copy this. I'm going to add a second one. We'll grab the next one down, do that just like that. And then what we're going to say too is if the servo is off, right? Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to be turning it off every single time it's an IP. So I'm going to say if the servo is off, and that means the system's off, and there's an armed event happened, right? So the instruction is fired, it's armed, there's an armed event happened. I want to put in some automatic controls so I don't have that homing problem anymore. Okay, so that goes ahead and disarms it. So it should have disarmed. Let's make sure we're doing the right. We're disarming the wrong bit right here too. So let's come in here and disarm the correct bit. So it's good we actually did that, but we want to come in here and add some extra controls in here as well. So now this already fired, so this is not going to be good. So let's actually test this out one more time. Let's come in here, let's start it, and then let's immediately stop it. That way we can test our controls out, and you see that that did fire, and you see that did actually work accordingly. So now if we come up to our our actual registration up here, we're not in progress anymore. So now if I want to come to the servo and I want to open it up, I want to go to home, I can home and there's no problem. See that? No problem whatsoever. And to give you more clarity on that, that even takes this much further. To give you more clarity on that, the actual position is back to the 0 again. So again, so that's, I mean, doing the programming and showing you how things are done and showing you different like little quirks and stuff like that, as far as like things you can get out of, really adds to understand what's going on here. Because again, now you have to double check to make sure your system still works properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. Now it did arm. So if we come over here to our registration and we look, we missed this very first one, but generally speaking, you would cut that off. You wouldn't worry about it. You would definitely not be concerned with that whatsoever. System is tracking properly, and the events are staying at around 1, just like they had been. So they're not fluctuating. Everything is working properly. The arm commands, again, you would have to come in here and trim that stuff, but this is exactly why you would put the servo action status in there, but you would also come in here to the disarm and put that in there as well. So when you shut off, you do have the variability to actually cut that off and do whatever you need to. So now if you need the home, you could put an HMI button on the home and actually function just like that. So now we've disarmed the event, and that works accordingly, just as it should. So I just want to make a quick little video to show you guys that, and hopefully that helped and it helped you with troubleshooting, and we'll see you guys on the next one.